Described as a pattern of censorship of the conflict over oil in the region. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. We're broadcasting from Portland, Oregon. Well, today is April 15th, Tax Day, a day when tens of millions of Americans scramble to file their income taxes on time. It's also a day when people across the country are planning to protest the use of tax dollars to fund war. In dozens of communities across the country, demonstrations are planned at IRS offices, federal buildings, post offices, and other public places to protest the continued funding of the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. A recent study by the National Priorities Project shows more than 40% of every income tax dollar in 2007 went towards military spending. The largest share of that was for the war in Iraq, which has been estimated to cost taxpayers $12 billion per month. The total amount allocated for the Iraq War through fiscal year 2008 is more than $520 billion. To protest the continued funding of the war, some Americans are taking a stand today by personally refusing to fund the military. Tax resistors across the country are planning to withhold part or all of their taxes to protest the war. Pat and John Schwiebert have been war tax resistors for the past 30 years. John Schwiebert is a retired pastor who spent more than 4 decades as a United Methodist minister. His wife, Pat Schwiebert, is a registered nurse who founded support groups for parents who've lost their children. They both join me here in our Portland, Oregon studio. We welcome you to Democracy Now!
And welcome to Portland. It's good to have you.
Well, it's good to be back here. John, how long haven't you paid taxes?
Well, it's been over 30 years. I'm not exactly sure. I think it was 1977 when we stopped paying.
Talk about your decision that in 30 years ago.
I think we just pretty much together came to the realization that we're conscientious objectors to war, and if you object to war, you don't participate. The only way we could participate at our age at the time is by refusing to support it. And so we just said, well, we won't send in the military portion, the military percentage of our taxes.
And how do you work that out?
Well, in that case, we just filled out our tax return. We told the IRS what we owed, and we said we're only paying a percentage of it, and we're refusing to pay the rest. The IRS just treats it as if it were a failure to pay. So the only thing they've ever done with us is to try to collect the money, and in some cases they have, and in some cases they haven't been able to collect it.
Pat Schwiebert, how do they try to collect it?
Well, they've garnished our wages. They've
what does that mean?
Well, it means that they will attach part of your wages and take it without your permission to pay the portion of taxes that you've refused to pay.
So your check is just smaller.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And in terms of the percentage, what are you calculating, for example, this year, the percentage that would go to the military? What percentage aren't you paying? Actually,
we've gotten to the point, we're so upset by the direction the country has taken and the demise of democracy in this country that after the Iraq war broke out, we completely stopped cooperating, so we're paying nothing now. The percentage that's estimated by the War Resistors League is more like 50%. But I haven't paid any attention to it this year because we just didn't give anything. We're in total non-cooperation with the federal government.
So do you set money aside at all to give somewhere?
We have traditionally redirected the money to some other cause, and now since 2002, our decision has been to take the money that the federal government says we owe and to pay it directly to our local Multnomah County government. And so day after tomorrow, we're going to go down to the Multnomah County Commission meeting, their weekly meeting, with a check in hand. Yeah. And we'll give the reasons why we cannot support the federal government, and we'll thank them for not having a military department. And we'll give them the money to be used however they wish. But we have in mind that our county government has a heavy cost to pay for health care for people. including people who are in the position they are because of their involvement in the war and the suffering from the war.
What does Multnomah County, the officials there, say when you come to bring the money?
Thank you.
Thank you. I think they have a difficult time politically making statements, but in every year that we've done this, and this will be the 4th year now that we've done it, they thank us, and I can tell that there's appreciation, and there's probably even support for what they're doing, even though they may not be able to say it openly.
How does the IRS go after you?
Well, they've gone after bank accounts. They've taken money out of bank accounts. We don't have money in bank accounts now. They've gone after wages, gone to our employers. Most recently, they went to the General Board of Pension and Health Benefits of the United Methodist Church. And this has been a real difficulty for us, because the United Methodist denomination has in its social principles a statement of opposition to war as an instrument of social policy, and also a directive that churches should support their members who engage in conscientious civil disobedience. And yet the General Board of Pensions, when they got a notice of levy from the IRS, actually paid over $8,000 of money that we had refused to pay, took it out of our monthly pension checks, and sent it directly to the IRS. So we have a bone to pick with them. We're going to the General Conference of the United Methodist Church next week, and we're going to ask them to make it a policy that the General Board of Pensions may refuse to cooperate with the IRS. In other words, the church has to do civil disobedience too, if it's opposed to the war.
Is there any indication they will?
There's a bunch of conservatives that have their hands in the operations of the General Conference, so we don't know. We don't have any illusions about that, but we're going to be there and show our faces and say we're the people who are on the line.
How much support do you have from, well, just the general Methodist membership?
There's a lot of support. There's division in the church, of course. So there are some people that think that the worst thing you could do would be to stand up against your government.
Well, I think most people, too, are, even though they're verbally supportive, they're also afraid. They're afraid for us, and they're also afraid for themselves, and so aren't willing to take a stand.
Pat, can you talk about your work working with parents who've lost their children?
Sure. I began working with bereaved parents in the early 70s, and was humbled by how I saw the death of their children, how it affected their lives, and it was, one day when a nurse colleague and I were talking, and she said, "Do you know what your income taxes go for?" And I wasn't able to really answer that question very succinctly, and so she helped me see that the major portion of our taxes go for the military. And it was like one of those pivotal moments in my life where what my life's work was and what I was actually participating in kind of coincided, and I realized that I couldn't continue to do that. That as a parent trying to live my life consistently, it was that's not what I was showing my children. That in one breath we were saying it's not okay to kill, but we were paying for somebody else to kill in our name. So we as a couple and then as a family have chosen not to do that. I
wanted to go to a Congress member for a moment, and ask you to comment after she speaks. On Capitol Hill, several lawmakers are holding a tax day press conference this morning on the cost of the Iraq War. Representatives Jan Schakowsky of Illinois, Keith Ellison of Minnesota, Jim McGovern of Massachusetts, and Peter Welch of Vermont will present taxpayers with a bill that shows